The stories you are about to see are real. The rewards up to $5 million are real. This is Crime Reports and Rewards with Griff Griffin and Dave Michaels, where you stay anonymous, the criminals don't.
The Richmond County Sheriff's deputies report 26-year-old Jalil Quindarvis King died early Saturday after being shot in the chest. They suspect he was killed by 32-year-old Domingo Roberts, who is the black male you see on your screen. Sergeant Michael McDaniel is quoted as saying that King was shot several times in the 1200 block of Steiner Avenue. Deputies say Roberts is considered armed and dangerous and currently wanted on charges of murder, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime. Crime Reports and Rewards has two different sources saying that this and other shootings and murders in this area are the result of the Blood Gang trying to take over the area. They're offering the drug boys and gun thieves silver or lead. If they join the Bloods, the initiation is to shoot those who won't join. Unfortunately, the leading way Bloods leave the Bloods is in a body bag. If we, you and I, don't stop this gang war before it really gets started, there could be as many as several hundred shootings and a bunch of innocent bystanders hit. If they manage to take over and reach a certain strength, they will systematically begin killing our best Leos, then robbing on their funeral days. If you know a drug boy, tell him to call the police. Crime Stoppers at 800-222-TIPS or text their tips to 803-441-8744 to save their own lives before they're overrun and killed.
And now, this Crime Reports and Rewards special report.
Our sources tell us now that the Blood Gang is moving into the area. They're offering the drug boys and gun thieves silver or lead. If they join the Bloods, the initiation is to shoot those who won't join. Unfortunately, the leading way Bloods leave the gang is in a body bag. If we, you and I, don't stop this gang war before it really gets started, there could be as many as several hundred shootings and a bunch of innocent bystanders hit. If they manage to take over and reach a certain strength, they'll systematically begin killing our best cops, then robbing on their funeral days. If you know a drug boy, tell him to call the police. Crime Stoppers at 800-222-TIPS or text their tips to 803-441-8744 to save their own lives before they're overrun and killed.
My son, William Charles Carter, October the 19th, 2011.
My son, Tyrone Capricorn Jr., 26 April 1998.
Philip Rashad Ford, March the 18th, 2013.
Anthony Louise King Sr., August the 3rd, 2012.
My son, Delance Perez Walton Sr., December 15th, 2012.
James Gillette Jr., March 20th, 2011.
My son, Corey Dante Joseph, March 7th, 2007.
My son, Marquez Eubanks, July 19th, 2013.
My son, James David Paul, October 23rd, 2011.
It only takes a second to extend your life.
Now, Crime Reports and Rewards and Augusta Crime Stoppers join to remember those who have been shot down in our streets needlessly. Vaughn Daniels is the founder of Angel Hearts. Congress has recognized September 25th as a day of remembrance for murdered victims. Richmond County Sheriff's investigator Rolf Kramer is seeking anyone with information regarding the location of Kevin Conwell. On 8/18, the above subject entered a residence located at 2030 Rozier Road along with Benny Lassiter and attempted to remove appliances. Benny Lassiter and Kevin Conwell have outstanding warrants for burglary. If you think you know where either one of these suspects are, please call investigator Rolf Kramer at 706-821-1080. Crime Stoppers at 800-222-TIPS or text your tips to 803-441-8744, where you remain anonymous and keep burglars and home invaders out of your bedroom. Richmond County Sheriff's deputies report there have been thefts from cars and even home invasions in a West Augusta community off of Walton Way. A white Ford or GMC pickup with all black wheels pulled into a driveway off Almond Road. A heavy-set black male with a large beer gut dressed all in white, like a painter wears, walked up to the door and left after no one answered. A few minutes later, he backed his truck into the driveway and drove off with their utility trailer. The trailer is painted brown on the inside. The local neighborhood watch has said other break-ins have happened around the West Augusta neighborhood near Lancaster and Vassar Drives. If you know who or where this black male with a large beer gut dressed all in white may be, please call the Richmond County Sheriff's Office. Crime Stoppers at 800-222-TIPS or text your tips to 803-441-8744, where you remain anonymous and keep your stuff. The Richmond County Sheriff's Office is looking for Beverly Marie Moore, also known as Beverly Sawyer. Beverly Marie Moore is wanted for forgery in the 3rd degree by the Richmond County Sheriff's Office Fraud Division. Moore cashed a forged check drawn on the account of her former employee, Sultry Sounds Auto Sales. If you see Beverly Marie Moore out buying more eyeliner or something, please call investigator Michelle Walden at 706-821-1454. Crime Stoppers at 800-222-TIPS or text your tips to 803-441-8744, where you remain anonymous and keep your money. Recently, you saw on Crime Reports and Rewards a man hitting a veteran in the back of the head. The man admits he's guilty of attacking a Vietnam veteran at a Grovetown gas station. Eric Rowland entered a guilty plea earlier this week. As part of his deal, a judge sentenced Rowland to pay a $500 fine or spend 90 days behind bars. Rowland was arrested in early July for simple battery. The prosecution said he hit Jacob Cooter at a gas station on Lewiston Road. The sheriff's office says they attacked during an argument about who was next in line. At the time, Rowland claimed Cooter made a racial slur, but store employees and video show that he never made one. Now, everyone does realize this attacker does drive a tractor-trailer rig. And Crime Reports and Rewards is shocked and cannot believe that they're going to let this guy who attacked this veteran drive a tractor-trailer rig down the streets of our area. What happened if he goes berserk because he doesn't like the way he pulled up to a red light? What happens if the cops start chasing this tractor-trailer driver and the guy just drives over everybody all over town and drives through the middle of houses and drives through the middle of stores? A tractor-trailer will not stop for almost anything. Call your local police. Tell them you don't want Eric Rowland rolling down the highway in a tractor-trailer and going berserk and killing a bunch of our citizens. Thank you. Now for a special report on shenanigans being pulled on a river. Recently, you may have heard that our river was closed because it looks like someone had poured several gallons of hot Crisco into our river to make it appear to be far more polluted than it actually is. Not too far back, the riverkeeper said that our river is the third most polluted in the nation. Right after that, two reputable scientists came behind her and said, no, it's not. As a matter of fact, it's very, very clean. Now, the riverkeeper and others have gotten together and they are hiring people to spray an Agent Orange type chemical in our river. Here's what they say about this chemical. Although the chemicals are not harmful to fish or humans, officials advise against swimming in the treated areas during the applications and for 2 days afterwards. Well, we have to ask, how many times has this Agent Orange type chemical been sprayed on our river? And why is even more hydrilla present now than when they began spraying it? Will anyone making money or spending your tax money on this drink a beer mug full of it? Why not? The areas to be treated will extend from the Water's Edge development to the 5520 bridge. If the riverwalk near the docks is so choked with hydrilla you can't get in there with a boat or jet skis most of the time, why are they continuing to spray this Agent Orange herbicide that obviously does not work? It sounds like somebody's getting a kickback. It was called in, and we've examined it, and now we have to ask, are kickbacks for things being done on the river part of why taxes are going up? We report, you decide. Go to our Facebook page and tell us what you think. Do you think kickbacks are making our taxes go up? The Richmond County Coroner Mark Bowen reports a body found 14 years ago behind the Golden Harvest Food Bank has been ID'd as that of a missing Florida teen. The teen, whose body was found February 6, 2000, is 18-year-old Westme Lusant from West Palm Beach, Florida. At the time of his murder, Lusant was wearing a black jacket, FUBU shirt, carpenter jeans, and FUBU tennis shoes. The coroner at the time was Grover Tootin, who indicated that the body was found in an area that, unless an air conditioner broke down, would be no reason for anyone to be there, and no one knows how long the body had been at that location. So, why did it take 14 years for them to ID the body? Guess Richmond County Chief Coroner Grover Tootin was too busy doing something else. Wonder what it could have been. If you know who or where the killer of this young man may be, please call Sergeant Paul Godden of the Richmond County Sheriff's Office. Crime Stoppers at 800-222-TIPS, or text your tips to 803-441-8744, where you remain anonymous and get paid.
And now, this Crime Reports and Rewards special report.
Yeah, I'm Mike Stacy, the marina operator, and this is my sign, Augusta Riverfront Marina. It's put here by the city, and I'm sure it has a building sign permit. I'm not sure about this one over here. It belongs to, of course, the father of that Savannah Riverkeeper. Everybody knows who the Savannah Riverkeeper is by now, I'm sure. And up here you got the Waterkeeper Alliance. Who are they? People, you need to find out because I'm fixing to. I think you see how the Waterkeeper Alliance is on top of this sign. Very nice, expensive looking sign. That indicates to me that the real person in charge here, by being on top, is the Waterkeeper Alliance. And I'm fixing to write an essay for you describing my opinion of this relationship, and this relationship all put together. Stay tuned.
So the question is, Who are the Waterkeepers Alliance? At the recent climate rally in New York City, one of the main climate activists, Robert Kennedy Jr., was wearing a Waterkeepers Alliance t-shirt as he lost his cool talking with PJTV's Michelle Fields.
I'm Michelle Fields for PJTV. We're here at the People's Climate March in New York City, where we had the opportunity to speak to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Take a look. This is a pretty large event. There were millions of flyers handed out, over 400 buses of people coming here. Are you concerned about the damage to the environment that something like that would cause?
I think you need this kind of event to save the environment. What I'm concerned with is the kind of damage that's being caused by Exxon and the Koch brothers and by the oil wars that we've spent $4 trillion on over the last 10 years. And the only thing between us and that kind of future, where the oil companies have subverted our democracy and are running our foreign policy and running our domestic policy, is people power. They have the money on their side. We have the people on our side, and we need the people here to show that they don't want to take it anymore.
Do you have an iPhone or an Android?
I have a cell phone.
You do? Are you concerned about the damage that the cell phone and electricity generation causes to the environment?
Are you joking about this?
No, I want to know if you're willing to give up your iPhone. Are you willing to give? Why not? Doesn't it start with people like you? You're here saying you want.
No, it starts by changing the laws so to rationalize the marketplace, so that we reward the most efficient forms of energy use, and we punish the bad ones.
Shouldn't you lead by example?
No, I do lead by example.
So are you going to give up your cell phone?
No, I'm not going to give up my.
Are you going to give up your car?
Are you going to give up yours?
I'm not the one who's here talking about the environment. You're here trying to change the environment, trying to change the laws. So I'm asking if you are going to lead by example.
No, I'm not going to stop using a cell phone, and I'm not going to stop using. I don't believe that we have to reduce our quality of life in order to have a rational free market, in order to stop the use of carbon, in order to divorce ourselves from a fuel that is destroying our planet. What we need to do is change the laws. It's much more important to change your politician than it is to change your light bulb or your cell phone or your automobile. It's much more important because right now the Koch brothers own the Tea Party, they own the Republican Party, and they own a lot of the Democratic Party. And if they were saying to us, listen, we don't care what kind of car you use, but we're going to make a law that says you can't make a car in this country unless it gets 40 miles per gallon, or you can't make a car unless it's an electric car. And everybody's quality of life can be maintained. We don't have to go to war and spend $4 trillion in foreign wars because the Koch brothers are going to make higher profits from doing that. And one of the biggest canards that the press has fallen for is by blaming individuals for their own choices. That's not the issue. The issue is what's happening on Capitol Hill, and that's the thing you guys aren't paying attention to. You're letting these people, you're letting the Koch brothers run our country, subvert our democracy, corrupt our politicians, capture the agencies.
You could say the same thing about
capture the agencies that are protecting the rest of us from pollution, and destroying local democracy on every level. And that's what you ought to be paying attention to, rather than asking trivial and inane questions about whether or not, what kind of car somebody drives or whether or not they use cell phones.
Reporting in New York City, I'm Michelle Fields for PJTV.
If you remember, the climate change people are the ones that have been warning us that we need a carbon tax to fight global warming. Anyone who lives in the CSRA knows global warming is a hoax, is proven by the fact we had 2 massive ice storms last winter in a place where we rarely see light snowfall. The United Nations is behind the global warming as a way to deindustrialize the U.S. Another of their power grabs is to take control of the water of the world, because if you control the water, you control life, and our government is trying to help them.
The waters of the United States have historically been defined to be the territorial seas that extend 12 miles from the shoreline, the ports and rivers and other navigable waters within the United States. Historically, navigable has meant waters in which a canoe would float. Historically, water on or under private property was the property of the owner. No more. legislation currently pending in Congress will redefine navigable from the definition of the waters of the United States and expand that definition quite dramatically. Senate Bill 787 says, waters of the United States means all waters subject to the ebb and flow of the tide, the territorial seas, and all interstate and intrastate waters and their tributaries, including lakes, rivers, streams, including intermittent streams, mud flats, sand flats, wetlands, sloughs, prairie potholes, wet meadows, playa lakes, natural ponds, and all impoundments of the foregoing to the fullest extent that these waters or activities affecting these waters are subject to the legislative power of Congress under the Constitution. This means all water everywhere will belong to the federal government, including the streams on private lands, including the natural and man-made ponds on private lands, including wetlands and wet meadows and sloughs and prairie potholes and playa lakes. It matters not who owns these lands or how much was paid for them. With the passage of this law, it will all belong to the government. But private owners will have to continue to pay taxes on the property, and any activity by the owner that affects this property is subject to the approval of the federal government. It matters not that the Constitution says that private property cannot be taken by the government for public use without just compensation. Congress is poised to effectively take hundreds of millions of acres of private property from owners, claiming ownership of the water, and redefining land to be the waters of the United States. Senator Russ Feingold sponsored Senate Bill 787. Ask your congressman to kill it. Leave non-navigable waters in the hands of the states, and leave the land on which it flows in the hands of the owners.
Another way the government is taking over our lives while completely looting the nation, transferring all economy to the bankers, and just making a joke of our country is through the National Oceans Council, another branch of that United Nations Agenda 21 takeover that they've had so much trouble passing. And it's just like the rural councils that Obama announced in 2010, with a long list of government agencies from the Department of Defense to Homeland Security and plenty of others in charge, supposedly, of all the nation's waterways. But that doesn't just mean water. That doesn't just mean coastlines. It includes rivers, lakes, streams. It also includes sources of water. So on the basis of snowfall, for example, they could be regulating mountain areas, environmental regions, on and on. It's all part of the larger sustainable development grab. And so from the Human Events article, Zoning the Ocean by Audrey Hudson, she elaborates on Obama's executive order from 2010. President Obama has an ambitious plan for Washington bureaucrats to take command of the oceans, and with it, control over much of the nation's energy, fisheries, even recreation, in a move described by lawmakers as the ultimate power grab over the zone of the seas. It's pure administrative fiat, Senator David Vitters said. And he's someone who actually, despite his own controversies and lackings, has been on much of the scientific takeover agenda. I know he was early on questioning John P. Holdren, who happens to head this Oceans Council, on his genocidal quotes from the past and other questions along these lines about these United Nations power grabs. So it goes on. The order says they shall develop a scheme for oversight of oceans and all the sources thereof. That is Representative Flores saying, so you could have a snowflake land on Pikes Peak, and ultimately it's going to wind up in the water. As a result, they could regulate every square inch of U.S. soil, because the water goes everywhere, the air goes everywhere. The United Nations wants to take over what they call the global commons because it knows no borders, no bounds. All people are subject to the basic elements of our planet. So if they can establish regulation over that, they've got us all. Now, the National Oceans Council and this plan is still in draft form, and they're still simultaneously trying to pass the Law of the Sea Treaty, or LOST, as in lost sovereignty, which is the United Nations form of this treaty. It's still in draft form, but it still has called for over 150 milestones to be accomplished by next year, and they are in the process of implementing it. And so you look at the membership of the National Ocean Council, it's co-chaired by John P. Holdren, the notorious eugenicist, the genocidalist, who is basically the science czar under Obama. He's one of the authors of Ecoscience. You also have Nancy Sutley of the Council on Environmental Quality. But look at the rest of the list. It's the cabinet officials appointed by Obama and so forth and so on. Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State. Leon Panetta, Secretary of Defense. Ken Salazar, Secretary of the Interior. Tom Vilsack, Secretary of Agriculture, who's basically a front man just for Monsanto and Company. Sebelius, Head of Health and Human Services. You got Commerce, Labor, Transportation, Energy, and on, including Janet Napolitano, Head of Homeland Security. This is exactly like the Rural Council. In this case, they're trying to establish a council or a Soviet or an unelected governorship over the waterways, as they similarly are trying to do over the rural areas, the farmlands, the non-metro districts. Let's cue that clip.
That they've also asked for the right to imprison farmers who wouldn't keep books as prescribed by the federal government. The Secretary of Agriculture asked for the right to seize farms through condemnation and resell them to other individuals. And contained in that same program was a provision that would have allowed the federal government to remove 2 million farmers from the soil.
If you live in the heartland of America, you have to listen up. While the nation was distracted with the Anthony Weiner drama, President Obama signed an executive order that will seize greater power over food, fiber, and energy in our vast countryside areas. The president created the White House Rural Council to, quote, make sure we're working across government to strengthen rural communities and promote economic growth. Sounds great, but get this. The council involves a long list of the most powerful people in America. Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner, the Defense Secretary's on it, Attorney General Eric Holder, even the head of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano. Why would Homeland Security be involved in exerting power and influence?
And so here we have Cassandra Anderson's article for InfoWars. She also has her own blog at Morph City, commenting on Obama's executive order 13547, passed in July of 2010. And as she points out in the article, it is basically the United Nations Law of the Sea Treaty, or LOST, as in lost sovereignty, but they couldn't get that passed. It's part of the larger Agenda 21, and so they're passing under executive fiat this total takeover of the waterways. And it's just important to note the degree to which they plan to take over everything. It's sickening. You saw what they're doing in the Rural Council, and here they have it again. It's all these Obama administration officials over everyone's life, unelected, just like the governor's board. The governors themselves were originally elected, but nobody ordered the board of 10 governors who preside over the FEMA regions. And then similarly, they have the nation's waterways, the coastways, on, broken up into their own 9 regions. The whole point here is they're trying to regionalize the United States, put it under regional control, sub-regions and the larger North American region, all under global governance, with dozens of agencies, like the ropes over Gulliver's Travels. The Lilliputians have rope after rope binding them down, not one rope, lots of tiny ropes circling the globe, putting it under control gradually through all these different policies, through these different advisory panels, through these Soviet blocs. That's what real communism is. It's unelected boards ruling over you.
You've been watching Crime Reports and Rewards with Griff Griffin and Dave Michaels, where you stay anonymous. The criminals don't. If you have any information on these or any other crimes, call our national tip line at 1-800-222-TIPS. Well, you'll stay anonymous and could get a cash reward. You can see this or any other episode of Crime Reports and Rewards on the web anytime at crimereportsandrewards.com. Crime Reports and Rewards is a production of Michaels Media.